Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, who made gas and diamonds abundant in the bedrock, as are flowers on the surface, constantly regenerating, a secret of the Freemasons. The Freemasons are the ones who are controlling the mining and the industry of mining and the country's natural resources. This is a part in a series about the death of the president of Iran on May 19th of 2024. In a helicopter crash, and about the killing of the commander Mohammad Reza Zahedi, who is the commander of Hezbollah in Syria and Lebanon. And we will discuss also the Iranian counterstrike named Operation True Promise on April 13th of 2024. So May 19th of 2024, East Azerbaijan on the river Aras near Uzi is where the helicopter went down. This is the location of the crash. At 1 p.m., 3 helicopters leave Gizgalasi Dam. At 1:30, the lead pilot told the others to raise altitude to avoid a cloud. 30 seconds later, the lead helicopter disappeared in the cloud at an altitude of 7,000 feet. The other 2 helicopters increased their altitude and circled the cloud where the first helicopter disappeared. They were afraid to enter the cloud. After 15 minutes, they landed at Sunglow Copper Mine and called the cell phone for the pilot. Someone else answered his phone. It was the governor of East Azerbaijan province, Mohammad Ali Hashem. He said, "I don't know what happened. I'm under trees. I'm alone." They took a vehicle up the mountain, but the governor died 3 hours later, waiting for them to arrive. Inside the helicopter was the president of Iran and the foreign minister of Iran, who died at the crash site. From May 14 to 28 in Gaza, there was an evacuation of 1 million refugees in Rafah under bombardment, and it's widely known as a genocide of the Palestinian Arabs. On the date of May 22nd is the funeral for the president of Iran, who was killed in the helicopter crash. The former leader of Gaza gave a speech in the deceased president's honor, Ismail Haniyeh. He was killed 2 months later during the inauguration ceremony of the new president. At the funeral on May 22nd, many foreign leaders attended: the Prime Minister of Iraq, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, the Prime Minister of Azerbaijan, the Emir of Qatar, the President of Tunisia, the Foreign Minister of Egypt, the Foreign Minister of Afghanistan, and delegates from 60 different countries all attended the funeral of the President Ibrahim Raisi. This is the location of the helicopter crash. This is Tehran. This is the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea. This is Baghdad, Basra, the Arabian Sea, Qatar. and the location of the crash is on towards the foothills of the Lower Caucasus at the end of a mighty river, Aras, which forms the borderland for the country of Azerbaijan. Here has a border along a river in these highlands. It separates it from Iranian territory. The biggest city in this area is Tehran. It has 15 million people. The next biggest city in this area is Baghdad. It has 9 million people. There are a couple of 500,000 person cities in this area, and there is in this corner, it's Iraq. It has 3 cities, 2 million, 2 million, and 1 million. It's making up 5 million city economic power base here. And the only city very near to this area on the Aras River is the city Tabriz, which is 2 million people or 1 million people. There is a dam that's used for power, electrical power. The hydroelectric dams produce power enough for city grids, and there is a rumor that Iran's power grid depends heavily on the hydroelectric dams. They have these projects here. This is the Gis Galassi Dam, where the president and foreign minister were meeting with the governor of Azerbaijan, or the minister of Azerbaijan here, and they were talking or meeting about a project, this dam project here, the Koda Afarin Dam and Power Station, that they would make a new big project here for this dam. And this was a meeting involving the president of Iran, the foreign minister of Iran, the highest leaderships of Azerbaijan. So this was a very exclusive meeting, and obviously involved the government trade deals. They left the upper dam, 3 helicopters, and they traveled that way. So as they left the dam, they were flying up to towards the mountains in the direction of Tabriz. This around this way. They reached this point here, where the lead helicopter said there is a cloud, a big white cloud here, and he had already flown into the cloud, and the other 2 raised altitude and started flying around this area. They couldn't see anything, so they came over and landed. So they landed here at the Sunglow copper mine, and they called the cell phone to try to hear from this pilot. And it is curious about this area. You see that number one, the location is at the end of the mountain chain. So they were, should raise altitude if it would cooperate. They were flying, and they hit obviously here on a downslope of a mountain, so they were not at the highest point where they hit. As you see, there's nothing here. There's nothing here to hit. The Iranian government said it was a technical malfunction. And if you look at the satellite images here at the end of the foothills, where the planes would have been crossing over, you see that the satellite imagery is blacked out. These are artifacts on the imagery. They're not clouds. They are editing. It's editing of the satellite imagery. They landed at the Sunglow copper mine. They were able to contact the Iranian governor for East Azerbaijan, and he said, "I'm in the trees. I don't know what happened." And this killed the president. So this is the president of Iran, Mohammad Raisi. He was born in 1960. He never went to middle school or high school. He stopped at the 6th grade, and he went to the Cleric Institute of Mashhad. And when he was 18 years old, he went to a special seminary school in Qom, which was for him to learn to be a senior manager at age 18 of the Judicial Intelligence and Security for the new Iranian Revolution, which at this time it is 1979, and there is the Ayatollah Khomeini's Great Revolution where he took power. The purpose of his work was to suppress dissidents. He was appointed to Masjid Soliman City by a representative of the Ruhollah Khomeini. And within a couple of months, he was sent to another city, Karaj City, to the prosecutor's office, where he was the lead of the interrogation department for political prisoners. After a few months, the Attorney General appointed him to be a prosecutor of Karaj that's another city, right after his 20th birthday. Months later, he was appointed as a prosecutor of Hamadan, another city, and he was relocated there. By the time he is 24 years old, he is an associate deputy for the prosecutor's office, and he is a member of the death committee. And all of the men who were increased in that rank, many of the men who went to the same school he went to, were all became great leaders of Iran, and they were all in their early days a part of the death committee. And the work of the death committee is exemplified in 1988 which was when he was 28 years old. There was a massacre over a couple of months in the summertime where 30,000 prisoners, 30,000 people from the jail were killed in groups. It was a government execution for political prisoners. That was anyone who did not agree with the new Iranian, it was Islamic Republic, and this leadership group, which Raisi was a part of. They were hanged in groups and put in mass graves. 30,000 people of Iran. It was a couple years after this that Ibrahim Raisi was promoted to be the prosecutor of Tehran. And in 1995, he became a trustee for the Orders of the Ayatollah, a chairman for the General Inspection Office. He became Vice Chief of Justice in 2004, and 2014, Attorney General of Iran. So just star upon star for this Raisi, Ibrahim Raisi, and his Chief Justice continues until 2021 when he becomes the President of Iran, and he dies 3 years later in this helicopter crash. So this is a significant time, May 19th. So this is the day of his death, and it was coincidental that of the very strong connections of the leadership for Iran and for Gaza. And in this time, there was a historical event, the evacuation and genocide of the city of Rafah, or of Palestine, which was 1 million refugees in the city of Rafah who were being killed under bombardment and being forced to move from the city limits out onto the grass and the sand, and who are furthermore under starvation siege. They're being genocided by starvation. They're under starvation siege now. So the leader Ismail Haniyeh was giving a talk at that. He is the leader of Gaza. He was giving a talk at the funeral for the president. And 2 months later, he will be killed at the inauguration of the new president. Who is Hamas? So the Hamas is the army of Gaza, and Gaza is a place where many Palestinian, or basically many Arab people, Sunni Muslim Arabs, had lived, and the area was occupied by the Jewish Israeli troops, army, Netanyahu's army. And in 2006, the army of Netanyahu moved out of Gaza Strip, and they built a big wall all around Gaza as their new security perimeter. And they had, in the preceding this, made some kind of like arrangement among governments that there could be a representation or like an ambassador of Gaza. and that it would be part of the Palestinian Authority. And that would be basically, the Palestinians are all of the Arab Sunni Muslims in this area of the White Sea, on the east shore of the White Sea. And they would get a representation that was part of a larger group, and that would be, the larger group's location are here at the West Bank, which is an extension of the power structure for this very large economic base here in Amman, Jordan, and representations with roots in Egypt here at this very strong power base at the front of the Suez Canal and Nile River. And so by their associations to these other governments, they will be given a representation. And this began with the man Ahmed Yassin. Ahmed Yassin is a man who was born in Ashkelon, and this city here, Ashkelon, I think it's this one, and he was he became a refugee back in 1930s, and he migrated down this way, which was where many of the people were pushed to live in refugee camps by the army of Netanyahu. So that is Ashkelon, where he is from. So this is Hamas. This is the leader of Hamas, this old man. He was succeeded by another man of Hamas. This one was born in the West Bank of Jordan. So he was born here in the West Bank. And the West Bank is the other side of the Dead Sea from Amman, Jordan. It's the West Bank. So he's from the West Bank. That was succeeded by this man who is talking at the funeral of the president of Iran, and who is a leader of Hamas, and who will be killed 2 months later at the inauguration for the new president of Iran. And the last leader of Hamas, it's a small group of leaders, and the last leader is the Yahya Sinwar, who would be in a later part of the series. The next major event for this series on World War III, the assassination of the leader. This is an Iranian commander, Mohammad Reza Sahidi. He was killed on April 1 of 2024 in an airstrike on Damascus, Syria. He is the commander for the Hezbollah of Syria, commander for the Hezbollah of Lebanon. They call it the Quds Force. And he, similarly to Ibrahim Raisi, as with every leader in Iran, he, by age 20, he was holding commanding positions. He was leading a division named after the first Shia Imam, and then a couple years later, he's leading a new division of the army at 20 years old, named the Path to Jerusalem. It's the name of the army. and their first operation is to control a city which is at the near the Strait of Hormuz, and it's a power base for Iran. And he is promoted to security commander of Tehran by 1990. By 2006, he's the commander of the army of Iran. And then he is obviously a right hand of Soleimani, and they have big projects in the west of Iran, in the countries west of Iran. So the country of Iran so there is in the Middle East, there is 3 big powers where most all of the people live, and that is the 90 million people who live in Turkey, the 90 million people who live in Iran, and the 110 million people who live in Egypt. And although there's this big land mass here, it's only half that. It's half the size of one of these 3 big countries. And in a rivalry to Saudi Arabia, equal in size is Iraq. There are 40 million people countries. As far as an economic base of power, to have a strong economic power as a country, you're going to need a very big city that is going to, because one city is an incredibly powerful economic base that cannot be rivaled except by a city of equal size economic power. And that is the ability to focalize that the large city is a measure of your economic power. So this is in Tehran, 15 million of the people are at that city of the 90 million. And the reason for the size of the Iranian territory is based on the ability for any of those cities to be able to economically cooperate and to wield it onto foreign powers. So Tehran is 15 million. The other cities of that size, and the only ones of this size, are Cairo with 15 million, Alexandria with 10 million, and Istanbul, Turkey with 15 million. So they are far from Tehran, and they have a very strong interest upon them because they are water crossings for the world trade route, which this is half of the world. And this is the crossing that leads down the mighty river of Europe named the Danube. It runs from Germany all the way out through every country and every major city in this area into the Black Sea. And the mighty river Volga, which runs from Moscow down into the Caspian Sea, and the river Dnieper, which runs from Moscow across to Kiev and down into the Black Sea. So the waterways, the only way out of this area with a waterway, in order to move more of the economic power than you ever possibly could on a roadway, you would need to use waterways, and this is the way. It goes this way, and the northern gateway is Istanbul, and the southern gateway is at Egypt. And the only other city of this strength is Tehran. And Tehran has these massive mountains that shield it from the influence of the north, and they stop trade from crossing these mountains. Nobody's getting their ships over there. Nobody wants to drive an 18-wheeler up over these mountains. Or maybe they could use trains in the past, but this is a major, they're not traveling as much. This is the Great Wall at his back that shields him. And as an extension of that, the power, all of the economic power of these people here, it does not radiate out in a perfect circle. It radiates out towards any big city near him, which he would want to have as his economic mate, because there's no one else. It's just them. And that would be the big city of Tabriz in the north with the 2 million. It's the largest city in the area. And the next biggest city in the area would be Erbil, Mosul, and Kirkuk. And then just southward of it, Baghdad. Those are the only cities anywhere near this area of a large size. And then just south of it, Isfahan. This is where a lot of the missile launches from Operation True Promise 2 occurred. And it's one of the largest cities in the area. And where the missile launches for the Operation True Promise 1, which we'll discuss today, is out of Kermanshah, which would be the last and biggest city on the borderland from Iran and Iraq, and the nearest pathway to project any kind of, we have to flip it all the way around to turn that way. So the rockets were on April 13th of 2024 were launched out of Kermanshah, and that included a series of drones, and it was sent towards Israel, which is here, from Kermanshah out to, rather here, out to Israel. So on April 13 of 2024, there. It's better. April 13th of 2024, a military operation by Iran named Operation True Promise. It is day 190 of Netanyahu army's genocide in Gaza. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, approximately 300 drones were launched from Kermanshah in Iran, which I showed you. In the evening, drones are still being heard over the skies of Iraq going out towards Israel. reportedly 100 Shahed 136 drones and 185 of the Shahed 238 drones. At the border of Lebanon, the Hezbollah army began to launch 500 rockets towards Israel at 10 o'clock in the night. As the drones are getting very near, they're coming over Iraq and over Syria towards Israel. The Israelis and their allies are now understanding. They understand that there is an attack underway, and they are engaging. They send 240 fighter jets from United States of America, from United Kingdom, and help from Jordan. And they're going to use the Americans and the UK have some bases here in Iraq and Syria. They are going to use those fighter jets and send them out to start shooting down the drones. There's about 300 drones in the sky, and there is going to, as the drones are coming, they will be scrambling fighter jets out of Jordan as well, belonging to the Jordan army, and also more fighter jets from other American bases over here in Jordan. So they just have like over 200 fighter jets in the sky in this area shooting down drones, and all over Iraq, Syria. Then they are going to, around 10 o'clock in the night, get the official notice from the Iranian regime in public media saying we are doing an operation attack. It is Operation True Promise counterstrike. And then they're going to wait a couple of hours and send cruise missiles, 30 cruise missiles. So a cruise missile, the cruise missiles, 30 cruise missiles were taken down by fighter jets. The cruise missiles go 2,000 kilometers an hour, and they could be taken down by fighter jets. It's the only practical thing, because the cruise missile is going to be going so fast, much faster than the drones. You're going to have to accelerate, get a missile lock, and hit the cruise missile before it reach the territory of its target. So they did this with all of the cruise missiles, intercepting them. And then at midnight, let's continue. Mr. Netanyahu and his army, they said that they hit 99% of the targets. So at midnight, Iran launched they had only 30 minutes to stop these cruise missiles. So Netanyahu's army, along with a coalition of 240 fighter jets, intercepted the cruise missiles. They had only 30 minutes to stop the cruise missiles from reaching the target in Israel. And at this time, simultaneously, 120 anti-satellite missiles were launched, and they would reach Israel within 10 minutes. Video evidence shows 20 striking one location, and Netanyahu admitted to only half of that number, even though initially he claimed that it was 99%. So he's a total liar, completely exaggerates, and denies everything that ever happened. He admitted to two sites being struck, and we know now that at least 30 anti-satellite missiles have been seen striking the targets. An anti-satellite missile can only be intercepted by another anti-satellite missile. Netanyahu has the Arrow 2 and the Arrow 3 defense system. The system intercepted approximately 10 anti-satellite missiles and therefore proved itself. The USA warships on the shore of Israel used weapon systems on board to stop at least 70 missiles. Each of the anti-satellite missiles have multiple warheads to use as decoys. All of the anti-satellite missiles have nuclear warheads. Fatah 1 was used. It is 40 feet long, 2.5 feet wide, travels Mach 14, evades radar using submunitions, has a 400 kilogram nuclear warhead, 900 pound warhead, and of the 30 anti-satellite missiles known to have struck, possibly more strike downs are undocumented. The targets of the anti-satellite missiles were Nevatim Air Base, Ramon Air Base, and a secret base in the Golan Heights. So he is shooting. They have fighter jets shooting down the cruise missiles, hotly engaged. They learn that 120 anti-satellite missiles are now being launched towards Israel. The only way to stop one of these anti-satellite missiles, it's a Fatah 1. It's the only one that we know of. This is the warhead. And they're all nuclear missiles. There was a nuclear war on April 13th. They used nuclear warheads and clearly did not put a lot of heavy uranium in it, or it would have made a larger explosion. But they have multiple warheads in them. Some of the warheads are used as decoys, and one of them can be loaded. If not, more than one can be loaded. And so the missile fires up into the atmosphere, and it'll get across to Israel in 10 minutes. So the missiles start firing, and Israel is learning, here they come. At this time, he knows he can launch an intercept missile, and it cannot be one of these baby David slings because it's not big enough. It would have to be the Arrow 2 or 3 missile, and it's gonna have to get up here in the atmosphere. So it's only going to have the potential, because it has the same speed, to hit that target. If he launches at almost simultaneously to the launch of the incoming missile, he may be able to reach it halfway. That's the maximum defense for it. So if any of these Fatah 1s start to drop down onto Israel, those David Sling rockets are not going to be able to intercept it because it's going too fast for the David Sling to be able to get a GPS lock on it and follow it and to be able to intercept it. It won't be able to get the right solution to intercept. And that the Fatah 1s have to be intercepted using only using some of these other anti-satellite sized missiles. The Arrow 3 and 2 and 3 defense system were able to reportedly take down 10 of the 120 ballistic missiles. So the missiles launch, and obviously some of them did strike down, which we'll watch the videos last. it's clear that these are probably the first missiles, anti-satellite missiles to be launched, are the ones that strike down in Israel, because the most difficult time is to make the defense is when he first launches it, because it's going to come so fast that those first ones you'll almost be nearly blinded to. You won't be able to get your anti-satellite missile interceptor up enough to be able to hit this thing. And they used the defense systems possibly in this region. The United States and UK used defense systems for anti-satellite missiles big enough to intercept these from the area of Syria, Iraq. They maybe had a couple of defense systems there, and they would have depended strongly on their, turn it around fully, here at the shore near Israel. There is a large number of United States warships now that are the task force for this active task force for Israel. And they would have had warships equipped with anti-satellite ballistic missiles big enough and fast enough to intercept a Fatah 1, and they would have launched them like crazy. They would have had to use like all of their battleships, like 10 battleships, plus the ones in the systems in Iraq and Syria, plus the Fatah or the Arrow 1, 2, and 3s from Israel, to intercept 120 anti-satellite ballistic missiles. They would have heavily brought to bear the United States military power in order to block that hit. And they missed about 30 of them. So try to go through a couple of videos. This is the launch on April 13th from Kermanshah, Iran. The 120 ballistic missiles. So you can see some beginning to ascend. And here you're in the military field, and you can see them beginning to launch. These are those Fatah 1s. And the strike zone for April 13. This is Jerusalem. And there is, you can see a series of very big missiles being launched. And if you see a tail of fire, it's a big missile. That's his gas tanks propelling him. And you see this comet storm hailing down. That's over Jerusalem. So these are not the cruise missiles, and these are not the drones, and there are some rockets, but if they're going an accelerated speed, like a comet ball, it's not Hezbollah. It's not the Hezbollah rockets. April 13th over Jerusalem. This is some launches. These are probably the David Sling interceptors. They can take down drones and cruise missiles or rockets in the city limits. They cannot get an intercept solution on an anti-satellite ballistic missile because it goes too fast. So there was a rumor of the Iron Beam as well, and it's possible that some interceptions, although they say that they cannot get the enough power into the laser weapons in order to be able to stop a missile accelerating at that rate. And more interceptors being launched, and you can see some coming down in. So this is Operation True Promise 1. It is April 13th, and there is strike downs. This is again in Jerusalem, and this is looking from the Parliament building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 just right there. Those are gonna hit, and the video ends because the media is explicitly censored. This is a launch. This is outside of Jerusalem. The interceptor is launched. So there is also a rumor that the Iranians blocked the radar systems for the intercepts. So it is a essential part that to get a interception of a anti-satellite ballistic missile, the only way, this is more strike downs, clear strike downs, accelerated missiles, a big barrage over Jerusalem from another angle. The only way to take down an anti-satellite missile is to be able to GPS track it and to go fast enough to hit it while it's moving. And the only way to track it is not by any ground-based radar, because if your ground-based radar is seeing an anti-satellite missile, it's too late. The only way to be able to see anti-satellite missiles is with satellites. They would need to use satellite radar systems integrated into their defense to tell the missiles on the ground the coordinates to create a anti-ballistic missile defense. So there's rumors that the Iranians blinded the satellites needed to track the his missiles, so that the whoever was going to try to defend wouldn't be able to GPS where these missiles are so he can hit them. And that this was to a much fuller effect used on October 1 in the Counter-Strike Operation True Promise 2. This is a strike down at Ben Gurion Airport on April 13th. Operation True Promise. They're very faint in this video. So here they're coming, they're like shooting stars, they're coming at this accelerated rate. And if there is a big enough nuclear head in it, it will make a very large explosion. And so there's a standard warhead that they used. It was enough to demolish a large building, a multi-story building. So these are strike downs. They're being covered up, And these are just his interceptor launching again. And the last image for the strike down on April 13th. And these are moving very, very fast. And the ones that are coming up the other way are not able to get a intercept solution on it. So we will continue in the series with the other major events for World War III in the Middle East, and the cyber attacks of September 17th and 18th, and the October 1, 2024 counterstrike named Operation True Promise 2. Allahu Akbar.